Of a shock, I had to sit down.
Please sit down. Your essay on Holy Sonnet number 6, Miss Baring, is a melodrama with a veneer of scholarship unworthy of you, to say nothing of done. Do it again. You must begin with a text, Miss Baring, not with a feeling. Death, be not proud, though some have called thee mighty and dreadful, for thou art not so. You have entirely missed the point of the poem, because, I must tell you, you have used an edition of the text that is inauthentically punctuated. In the Gardner edition...
That edition was checked out of the library.
Oh, Miss Baring.
Sorry.
Take this too lightly, Miss Baring. This is metaphysical poetry, not the modern novel. The standards of scholarship and critical reading which one would apply to any other text are simply insufficient. Do you think that the punctuation of the last line of this sonnet is merely an insignificant detail? The sonnet begins with a valiant struggle with death, calling on all the forces of intellect and drama to vanquish the enemy. But it is ultimately about overcoming the seemingly insuperable barriers separating life, death, and eternal life. In the edition you chose, this profoundly simple truth is sacrificed to hysterical punctuation. And death, capital D, shall be no more, semicolon. Death, capital D, comma, thou shalt die, exclamation point. If you go in for this sort of thing, I suggest you take up Shakespeare. Gardner's edition of the Holy Sonnets returns to the Westmoreland manuscript of 1610. Not for sentimental reasons, I assure you, but because Helen Gardner is a scholar. It reads, and death shall be no more, comma, death, thou shalt die. It's very simple, really. With the original punctuation restored, death is no longer something to act out on a stage with exclamation points. It's a comma, a pause. This way, the uncompromising way, one learns something from the poem, wouldn't you say? Life, death, soul, God, past, present, not insuperable barriers, not semicolons, just a comma.
Life, death, I see, it's a metaphysical conceit, it's wit. I'll go back to the library, I'll rewrite the paper.
It is not wit, Miss Baring. It is truth. The paper's not the point.
It isn't.
Vivian, you're a bright young woman. Use your intelligence. Don't go back to the library. Go out. Enjoy yourself with your friends.
I went outside. The sun was very bright. I walked around and past them. There were students on the lawn talking about nothing, laughing. The insuperable barrier between one thing and another is just a comma. Simple human truth, uncompromising scholarly standards, they're connected. I just couldn't. I went back to the library. Anyway, All right. Significant contribution to knowledge. 8 cycles of chemotherapy. Give me the full dose every time. The attention was flattering for the first 5 minutes. Now I know how poems feel.
Name?
My name, Vivian Baring. Baring, B-E-A-R-A-N-G. Vivian, V-I-V-I-A-N.
Doctor?
Yes, I have a Ph.D.
Your doctor?
Oh, Dr. Harper Makowsky. I'm a doctor of philosophy.
Take a deep breath and hold it. Okay.
A scholar of 17th century poetry.
Turn sideways, arms behind your head, and hold it. Okay.
I have made an immeasurable contribution to the discipline of English literature. I am, in short, a force.
Name?
Lucy, Countess of Bedford.
I don't see it here.
My name is Vivian Baring, B-A-R-A-N-G. Dr. Klekian is my doctor.
Okay, bye now.
After an outstanding undergraduate career, I studied with Professor E.M. Ashford for 3 years, during which time I learned by instruction, as well as example, what it means to be a scholar of distinction. As her research fellow, my principal task was the alphabetizing of indexed cards for her monumental critical edition of Donne's Devotions Upon Emergent Occasions. I am thanked in the preface. Miss Vivian Baring for her able assistance. My dissertation, Ejaculations in 17th Century Manuscript and Printed Editions of the Holy Sonnets, a comparison, was revised for publication in the Journal of English Texts, a very prestigious venue for a first appearance.
Where's your wheelchair?
I do not know. I was busy just now.
Well, how are you going to get out of here?
Well, I do not know. Perhaps you would like me to stay.
Guess I gotta go get you a chair.
Don't inconvenience yourself on my behalf. Wit. Itchy outbreaks of far-fetched wit, as Donne himself said. To the common reader, that is, the undergraduate with a B+ or better average, Donne's wit provides an invaluable exercise for sharpening the mental faculties, for stimulating the flash of comprehension that can only follow hours of exacting and seemingly pointless scrutiny. To the scholar, to the mind comprehensively trained in the subtleties of 17th century vocabulary, versification, theological and historical, political, geographical, and mythological allusions, Donne's wit is a way to see how good you really are. After 20 years, I can say with confidence, no one is quite as good as I.
Susie,
Oh, hi.
ready when you are.
Okay, go ahead. Dr. Baring, this is Jason Posner. He's going to take your history, ask you a bunch of questions. He's Dr. Klekian's fellow.
Hi, Professor Baring. I'm Dr. Posner, clinical fellow in the medical oncology branch, working with Dr. Klekian. Professor Baring, I was an undergraduate at the U. I took your course in 17th century poetry.
You did?
Yes, I thought it was excellent.
Thank you. Were you an English major?
No, biochemistry. But you can't get into medical school unless you're well-rounded. And I made it to myself I could get an A in the 3 hardest courses on campus.
How'd you do?
Success.
Really?
A-. It was a very tough course. I'll call you.
Okay.
All right. Just pull this over.